Happy Friday. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. It is great to see you this Friday. I'm going to say it right off the bat. I am not feeling well tonight. So I'm going to go as long as I can, but I have a feeling it's going to be an abbreviated show. What is going on here? I mean, we have had visitors from abroad. I'm hoping I'm not sick. And no time for that in life. So I'm going to see how far I can push. Put my other glasses on. Because we have a great show for tonight. Let's see how far I can push. It's remarkable sometimes how far I can go on fumes, right? Just like, whew. Tonight we will be doing the giveaway early in the night. If you remember our Wednesday episode, it was this book, this publication of Rug Cooking Magazine, a series of giveaways sponsored by Rug Cooking Magazine, hooked on Celtic Rugs by Gail Lambert. And we really enjoyed this book immensely. I think it was absolutely beautiful. As a technical book, it was a 10. As an inspiration book, it was a 10. So what more could you want, right? It was really, it was about a 50-50 blend of those two sort of characteristics or genres in this one book. So really beautiful book. And we have two winners for tonight. There's two copies of all of these books that we've been doing. This is the third in a series. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to say hello. I'm drinking water because I just don't feel well. It's one I felt fine today, and I was dragging a little bit, and then like who cares, right? But then it was kind of like prickly skin, like skin on your back, kind of prickly, and whoo. So I'm sitting in my chair at my work desk and not standing at my station because I just don't feel a bit dizzy and a bit nauseous. So I'm sitting down. I didn't feel like I could stand at my station indefinitely, and I have to get better because you know what? Let me show you this. I've got plans for tomorrow. I have got to feel better because I'm going to go to this event. And this is an event in Wethersfield, Connecticut at the Silas Deane House Museum. It has a third name recently attached to it. But it's in Wethersfield, Connecticut, right on the main street. Silas Deane is a famous revolutionary with a lot of mystery associated with his name because it is believed that it's entirely possible that he was a spy, and other people believe he was a great patriot. He's one of the few people of that time that really staple characters like Benjamin Franklin and most of the founding fathers truly disliked. So that's like a dog not liking something. Not equating the founding fathers to dogs, but you know what I mean. It's not a good harbinger when you get this sort of core group of people we respect, of whom we respect their opinion historically, and they really don't like this guy. And there is a lot of controversy about him possibly murdering someone on a boat. But it is an exciting tour, and this is a fun event. I signed up for a while ago, so I hope I'm up for it. It's called Digging Deepers, Stories Told Through, I think it's Needle and Thread, something like that. So I'm curious because I'm seeing like very antique Bargello. I'm seeing some mourning embroidery right in the center, and then a sampler on the right. And they do name hooked rugs. I'm reading the comments at the same time in the description. And of course, this is like a Revolutionary era house. So we're talking about like the 1700s, where it was built earlier than that. And it's neat. In this town, Wethersfield, the town museum, the Silas Deane Museum, which again now has a third surname attached to the museum, becoming more complicated. But I think they're acquiring more houses along the main street because it's one of these beautiful classic New England main streets, very historic feeling, very atmospheric, very charming. It's a place I would love to have a store. It's got a really classic main street with some very, very old houses, Revolutionary era. And of course, we know that does not go with our craft, rug hooking, right? If you're a hooker. So I'm curious. I'm not there to heckle. I promise I would never heckle. But I'm curious to see like the age of the stuff they've got, because of course it can't be a hooked rug if we're talking about stuff from that period. But then again, the mourning thing that I was looking at looks more like a Victorian thing. So that we could be talking about many different eras. So I'm very curious. I hope I feel well because I'd like to make it to the event, and it happens at 10 and at 3. If you're local, it might still be possible to go online and get tickets. You need to get tickets because they need to control numbers. So I'm really hoping that I feel great and that this is just an off day for me. It can just be, it's also crazy. I'm also crazy, so it could also be partly that psychosomatic craziness that manifests in a physical way. That can happen, right? anyway, I'm really hoping that I feel well because I'd really like to go and I'd like to take photos and I'd like to turn a show out of it, right? For us to enjoy and talk about. It's going to kick up a lot of interesting subjects. So, speaking of interesting subjects, our subject for tonight, after we do the Celtic rug giveaway book, is this book, right? So, I'll start looking at this. I don't know how far I'll make it, but Hooked on Handwork by Kathleen Eckhouse. Design a rug inspired by fibers, textiles, and handcrafts. So, this is Teddy. I'm just going to say, Teddy, Mama's running a show. I'll talk to you later, baby. Hung up on him. But he knows. He gets very nervous. Oh, sorry. It's like, that's okay. You're not on camera. But you will. I know he will blow up my phone if I don't address it. So let me see what buddies are here. And why can't I see? Hang on, everybody. There's something going on. There we go. M. Van Stewart. Hello. I am here. I logged on 1 minute late. I'm sorry about that. I was making sure I had tissue in case there really is trouble. We'll see what happens. Andrea, cheers, my dears. I wish I had something more festive on Cinco de Mayo, right? This is like the 5th of May, which is it's a big drinking day here. I don't know, but I don't believe it's actually a holiday, and I don't believe it's a holiday in Mexico. But hey, celebrating any day and anything for me is a yes. Just today, I'm celebrating with water because of how I feel, but I hope you're celebrating in a much more festive way. Andrea, you've got Bailey's Colada. Well, that is very nice. Candace, good evening from 97 degrees in North Texas. That's warm. That's warm, right? And Canada's getting the same thing, right, Linda? And you are getting like cuckoo temperatures the last couple of days. You're sitting outside just sweating yourself into a puddle. Absolutely bizarre. It's still very cold here and damp. And that is not helping. It goes right into your bones, you know? Whew, it's been rough. Gaynor, good to see you. It is sunny in Pennsylvania. I am glad. Linda, cheers, my dears. Happy weekend eve. We are right there on the edge. Let's do it. Let's push through. This is a great episode, and I hope that we can really get into that. Let me just say, I'm very excited about starting this book, but let me just say, I'm putting it out there at the beginning of the episode. I'm going to say this again. This book is about being inspired by other things, right? In this case, fibers, textiles, handcrafts. But you can be inspired by anything, right? Playing cards, salt and pepper shakers, right? Like people have collections like on the Gilmore Girls of salt and pepper shakers. I'm very inspired by that kind of thing. Occupied Japan, China, all that stuff. I love that stuff. Snow globes, paperweights, right? So the shout out I'm giving at the beginning of the episode is, besides handcraft and including handcrafts and textiles, what other things, let's brainstorm as we go, could you be inspired by to make a rug? Now, when you see the content of this book, you'll realize that many of these patterns are designs are pattern driven. In other words, not necessarily figural. There's not necessarily a character or main motif. Some of them, yes. Others, very pattern driven. Like this rug behind me is very pattern driven. And indeed, this rug is also very pattern driven on the back of the door. It's going to be when I'm not feeling well, the words don't come, do they? But, you know, a lot of rugs can be pattern driven and not a picture. This one, everything's reversed for me. This one has flowers and fleur-de-lis, so that's a little bit different because it's like an alternating checkerboard of a thing. I just love these two rugs. I have another thing to show you. We'll see how we do, but be thinking about other things that might inspire you, because it might inspire someone else too, right? I've showed you this before. This inspires me. Collection of tomato pincushions, right? I did do a hook rug with the tomato pincushion, and that was a great seller, that pattern. So it really could be anything, right? It could be your jewelry. But let's think about that. Let's do that together. Because I would love to hear some snowballing of ideas. Linda, country gal, welcome back. Hello in Wisconsin. Happy Friday. Linda H. in Mass, happy Friday. Good to see you. Juju, happy Friday evening to you too. And Sandra, good evening, everyone. Happy Friday. Shannon, happy Friday. I sent you a message on Facebook. No rush. Becky, happy Friday. Everyone from sunny, warm, hello everyone from sunny, warm Indiana. And Kaz, happy Friday. We were talking about you this week, but because you were at school teaching, You weren't live. Obviously, you were at work, right? It's almost summertime, one foot on the threshold. Good to see you. Another buddy in Wisconsin. April, happy Friday in Illinois. Beautiful, perfect day. It's such a perfect day. You know that Lou Reed song? It's not for everybody, I know, because Lou Reed's voice is not for everyone. That reminds me, last night I went to see Rufus Wainwright, who's one of my favorite people, talk about. I mean, I was in the fifth row, which was very nice, very emotional, really dramatic, theatrical, emotional, so beautiful, very filigree piano playing, more than usual, more than on recordings. But man, do I love him. And his father, Loudon, was at the same venue, the Bombyx in Florence, Massachusetts, last week. Love the whole family, love the Roaches too. Um, April. Anita, happy evening. Happy Friday evening. Mom, hooray, cocktail night in Granby. I'm happy you're there too. Melissa, I need to write back to you on email. Thank you for that great email. Hello, Kirsten. Hello, happy cocktail night in Vermont. Ryan, been rugging all day. It's break time. You're working on the tapestry. I can't wait to see an update on that. Maybe you've posted one already, but I haven't been there yet. I was getting the show ready and I was getting another project ready, debating if I should show it. I'll think on it because I'm putting an in-person class together and yeah, let me think on it. It's right next to me. I know I'm not teasing you. I swear. There's just tons of content tonight. Linda B. Tonight's book has so much inspiration. It really does. It's this book is just it's a huge inspiration in and of itself, right? And that's why I say let's open up the floor to thinking and brainstorming about some other sources that we could pull from because it's infinite. It's infinite, and it really depends on what you are interested in, doesn't it? Because we see a lot of rugs that are contemporary rugs out there, and I always have mixed feelings on um, um, not purely old time rug cooking. You know, with the first book of mine that's coming out in July, that's a little bit of everything. So I'm really trying to get away from pure, 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 only because um, I just feel like there's a bigger audience, and the further we cast the net and the more flexible we are in terms of definition of good work, the more people come to the craft, the better the chance the craft has of existing in the future, right? Because I'm thinking about the future. So there are so many things that come up that are popular subjects now, like anime, like popular culture, you know, cartoon characters, pop art, anything really is not my subject and not my area of beloved motifs, but other people's, yes. And it's so important, I think, to respect all different things that different people like, because some of us will love and others will say thank you but no, not for me. I know if I were to ask my kids what would you like for me to hook, Jocelyn would probably say a character from Steven Universe, right? And I'd be in big trouble for that. That would be a secret project. um, and I don't even know what Teddy would say. He would probably say something from Solar Opposites or one of his crazy shows that we watch that are completely inappropriate but so funny. So they like popular culture stuff, and it's because they're younger people, right? So this book really puts in mind, this is pulling mostly from antique textiles and handcrafts and different kinds of fibers like weaving, and we'll see. But it is interesting to open up the floor to that conversation because you can pull from anything. You can be inspired by anything. I was listening to the Audible series. I think it's called Words and Music. It's like a series of artists on Audible that have podcasts. And the one I'm listening to today is about Joni Mitchell, and she's talking. Well, she's not talking. It's narrated by the woman who interviewed her many times from the 1960s to the 2000s, and and she's relaying a story that Joni told. I love Joni Mitchell about how when she was at school, she was very good at art, and she didn't really have a feeling for writing, creative writing, or poetry. And she got a teacher who said to her, you know, you like art, right? You like drawing. So because you like drawing, why don't you just think about writing poems as art, right? Can you think about using words as color? And for her, that immediately clicked. And she started writing poetry. And she, you know, at the beginning, she said it wasn't super good. But obviously, she's one of the most important lyricists of all time. I mean, her words are absolutely beautiful. Her music is beautiful too, but I mean, for me, her words are truly moving and beautiful. And it just goes to show sometimes it's the inspiration, the way that the inspiration is put to you, that either allows you to or prevents you, blocks you from being able to access it, right, and get the most out of it. But sometimes the right person says the right words in the right order and the light bulb goes on and you think, I can absolutely do that. That makes sense. That has a shape, right? So that's what we mean to do on this show, and that's what this book does for me. So I know it's going to do it for you too because it's very varied. Ryan, been rugging all day. Linda, tonight's book has so much inspiration. Kara, just catching up. Kara, good to see you from Illinois. Happy Friday. Hello, hello. Ryan LeBeau is on too. Happy Friday from hot 90s, North Texas. Having a poolside gin drink. Ooh, brrr, very civilized. You made it up. It's an original. It's an original for our future cocktail book, cocktail cooking book. That's what it's for. Don't lose the recipe. Love and peace to all. You are so sweet. You too. You too. I feel better already just being online with you all. Judy, good to see you. Oh, thank you. You are all so nice. It's chill. Oh my God, is it Children's Day in Japan, Kaz? Now, Children's Day is different than Boys' Day when they fly the fish kites, right? Children's Day is completely different. Kaz, tell us about that if you have a chance in the. I would love to hear more about. We would all love to hear. Talk about inspiration. Right? Why don't we have Children's Day in the U.S.? Do you have Children's Day in Canada? I feel that we should have Children's Day in the U.S. We should celebrate those little, I was going to use a different word, but I won't. We should celebrate those little people, right? They are little sweethearts, all of them, aren't they? Aren't they? Kaz, Lords, good to see you. Hello, it's a holiday in Mexico. Is it? Okay, so it is a holiday, right? Because I was reading that it was not actually a holiday, but it is a holiday. Happy, and I'm going to say this wrong, I'm sure, Cinco de Mayo. That was wrong, wasn't it? Happy day. Exciting. There's two holidays going on in two different countries. That is really interesting. Mayo Batala de Puebla. That sounds absolutely beautiful. And now I wish that I had like a margarita at hand. Did you hear that, Jay? Because I think there's one in the fridge. If I was feeling better. Pamela, good to see you. No, you are not late. I am still running my mouth. Good to see you in Liberty, South Carolina. I am so glad you're there. Almost there. June 2nd. Oh my gosh, Kaz, June 2nd is the last day for the kids in Wisconsin. That is incredible because they go almost to the end of June here in Connecticut, and it really drives me crazy. It really drives me crazy because I want to spend time with my kids. I don't want to use the school as a babysitter. It drives me crazy. We have so many amusement parks to do. We have so many like lakes to swim in. The last thing I want is to have their summer cut shorter and shorter every year, which it is. And they cut the spring vacation in Connecticut this year too, so we didn't even have that week together. Awful. April, Kaz, we're going to have to celebrate that when you have your last day of school. I'll be curious to know when the teachers are calling it quits for the summer. That is an exciting time because that is such a true cycle, isn't it, for you and for the kids? It's one of those cycles that as soon as we're out of school as adults, if you're not a teacher or a student, you lose track of that. And that really is one of the big cogs of the year that turns everything else, isn't it? Such a big deal. Mosaic crochet is a great inspiration for hooking. Pamela, I completely agree. I completely agree. And one of the things about this book that we're going to go into in detail is if you are already doing a craft, right? If you are already doing crochet, is mosaic crochet the same as Tunisian crochet? I crochet, but I don't know enough about like the different sort of trends in crochet because I've been doing rugging and I haven't at all had time for anything else. But I'm curious about that. And I have seen people combining with the Van Gogh rugs, like a little bit of knitting. We've seen this on Coffee Time too, and rugging. Really interesting. We're going to talk more about that in the very near future because I'm working with my buddy Nancy, who I met with last week, and she had a great idea that I'm going to latch on to. Is there a margarita coming my way?
There is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I'm going to be. Cheers, my dears. What is this? Jalapeno strawberry?
Jalapeno something.
All right. Let's see. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I'm going to do it. It's like medicine, isn't it? Uh-oh. That is very strong. Whoa. All right. Cured.
Pineapple.
What is it?
Jalapeno pineapple.
Jalapeno pineapple. I can taste both the jalapeno and the pineapple. Oh my gosh, Ryan, you went to a concert this week. Melissa Etheridge. Oh, she is fantastic. She is fantastic. How exciting. Joy, cheers, my dears. Good to see you, my love. All right, I think I'm almost caught up. I just want to be sure you're not having side conversations that I'm missing that I would like to participate in too. Children's Day is a great idea. It used to be Boys' Day. Okay, so it's the same day. It used to be Boys' Day, now it's all Children's Day. Was it that there wasn't a Girls' Day before? It was just the Boys' Day, now it's for all children? It's good if it's balanced, that's for sure, right? But now we call it Children's Day. Okay, because Girls' Day 3-3 isn't a holiday. So that would not be fair. That's absolutely fantastic. Girls are important too, right? We hold up half of the sky to belong to that Facebook group too. I love that page. Kaz, we didn't have spring break either, but you get out earlier. Oh man, let's do it. Let's do it. So you know what we should do first? Um, because we did our Celtic book, I'm going to put the handwork aside for just a minute. I already have the winners for this. Thank you to Jane in Wales for doing the drawing, for generating the numbers of the people who entered. And I'm going to say the winners first. And then I want to look at this sheet because if you entered the drawing for the Celtic book, the question this week was, how did you come to rug hooking or rug making in general? Even if you're not doing it yet, how did you even get here? How did you find us here? Were you searching for something? Were you doing something else? Have you been doing it for years? Did you already write a book on it? Right? I was just wondering about Mosaic is different than Tunisian. That's interesting. We need a grandparents' day, that's for sure. That's for sure. Cindy, you've been doing some beautiful work. I've been noticing. Absolutely beautiful. So the winners, drum roll please, two copies of this book, Spam Risk. I'm not even gonna dignify that one. The winners of this book are Colleen Tiefenthal, Beech Nut Studio. Good to yes, it is, right? I always trip myself up with that. Colleen, I'm not sure if you're on tonight. Um, Congratulations. And Catherine Saz, Sahs. Congratulations. So those are the two winners. Colleen said in her answer, I began my rug hooking journey about 9 years ago. A friend who is also a creative soul brought me on board and I never looked back. You started a company too, and it's a heck of a company. Absolutely beautiful original designs. Let me see what Catherine said. And, Catherine said, I began my rug hooking journey with you on Ribbon Candy Hooking on YouTube. With your guidance, I found Rug Hooking Magazine and the mention of the North County Wool Gatherers in Fallbrook, California. Now I'm a member and I'm starting my first rug I ordered with you. Fantastic. Fantastic. I would love to win a copy of Hooked on Celtic Rugs. You won, Catherine. Congratulations to Colleen and Catherine. I'm going to throw out the episode, read some of the answers that our other buddies gave about how they got into rug hooking, because this is very interesting for me. Gail, good morning to you too, lovely lady. Happy morning in Australia. Get that coffee going. Good to see you. Congratulations to the book winners. Fantastic. And yeah, I want to read the rest of those as we go along. I'm always curious about how these things began, right? I'm always curious about people's route from point A to point B. Order list, I'm going to do that over the weekend. All right, so let's look at Hooked on Handwork together. One more of these little tipples. Yeah, let's do this. There's a bunch of things in my head that I want to share with you, but we have coffee time coming up too this year in the U.S. Okay, following the thread as well. Let's get going on this episode. Now come with me and we will look at, okay, so I didn't start with the book cover, but you saw the book cover. It was the thumbnail for this episode too. So the thumbnail is the cover of the book, Hooked on Handwork by Kathleen Eckhouse. So this is what we're looking at tonight. This is going to be a wonderful journey for us. And please pipe up at any time with ideas, kick in any ideas. And feel free, if you are in our Facebook group, which is Rug Cooking and Punch Needle Club on Facebook, feel free to post stuff that you have, that you own, that you found, ideas that are generated from this episode. And just give the context on the Facebook page, because people who didn't join us for this episode might say, what does that have to do with it? Who cares? Who cares, right? We know what it has to do with it, but it can be very inspirational for other people, so always feel free to do that. The first rug that I'm looking at is in the introduction, and this book starts out with a quote by Andy Warhol that says, "Don't think about making art, just get it done. Let everyone else decide if it's good or bad, whether they love it or hate it. While they are deciding, make even more art. Isn't that fantastic? That reminds me of the Stephen Sondheim song. What was it? Barbara sang it. It was like it's the same sentiment. Like don't worry about if it's good or bad because other people will decide that, right? They're going to make that decision for you. But I love this sentiment. Just keep going. By the time they catch up with you with their remarks, whether they're positive or not, you'll be on to the next thing or 5 things later, right? You'll be on to the next. They'll never catch you. You just keep going, evolving, growing, right? Cat coming out of the litter box. Whoosh. So this is a beautiful piece. Let me see if this is cited. I don't know that this is cited. I chose it because it was pretty, but in the introduction, let me see if she says what this piece is called. I'm not seeing it. This might appear later in the book, and I'll be able to tell you what this is called. I'm thinking about because I'm wanting to reference what this is, what has inspired this piece. It looks a bit like possible fracture design, a little bit. Could also be like fillet lace, that kind of thing, or a doily, right? Mightn't it be something like that? It's interesting because the colors in this are very interesting. Let me stretch this out a little bit. Not just the red and the white, like what's making me think of doilies and lace, right? Hang on. It's playing up a little bit, but we're good. We're good. Let me stretch it out. I really like the presence of the blue in this. Did you take the Paul Klee class with me on Wednesday? And if not, are you signed up for Sunday? Because it was fantastic. I went much more technically into the color wheel than I ever have before because it was Paul Klee. And this piece reminds me of that conversation. You have another chance at that if you are signed up for Sunday. I will be there. And it was a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous class. I saw a lot of drawings immediately after it, which means you were busy during class. And that is exciting. The colors in this remind me of that conversation about the color wheel because it's very unexpected, isn't it? We've got lots of neutrals. Browns are neutrals. White is neutral. So we've really only got the presence of the red and the blue on top of that, and very little of the blue. Just a hint. It looks like I'm seeing some sort of plaid materials too. At the bottom, you see the little stripey that has red and blue, right? So lots going on in this piece. I wonder what the genesis was. Thanks, Kirsten. You did amazing work. As you know, I'm totally in love with the pieces that you drew. The introduction starts like this. I grew up in the countryside of western Pennsylvania where my family raised pansies to sell, vegetables to can, and rabbits to eat. That's a great opening line. Wouldn't that be a great opening line for a memoir too? I grew up in the countryside of western Pennsylvania where my family raised pansies to sell, vegetables to can, and rabbits to eat. That is poetry right there. How beautiful. Chrissy, good to see you. Oh, I can't wait to see you on Sunday. I can't wait either. And she says, my mother made most of my clothing, had a candy making business, and decorated cakes professionally. Wow. I'm super inspired already. My dad plowed the fields for planting and taught me how to weed and hoe. My grandparents I'm going to come to you while I'm looking at this because this is just, I'm loving I haven't read this yet and I'm just loving the words here. My grandparents on both sides did all that too. So it makes sense that I became one of those people who likes to make everything from scratch. Back in our homesteading days, raising our family in the country, we grew our own vegetables and I canned and preserved our food. We raised goats for milk and chickens for eggs. I made garments for all of us. Sometime in the 1970s, I took a rug hooking class. As a beginner, not quite understanding rug hooking yet, I just couldn't leave empty holes in the foundation cloth, so I packed my loops too tight. My mat was stiff as a board. I learned. Then I started over, and I learned to make softer pieces, creating small wall hangings for my friends. It wasn't long until I was teaching wall hanging classes and warning students not to pack those loops. I didn't make my first actual rug until I joined the Magdalena Rug Hookers. Lisa, are you on? Of Perry County, Pennsylvania in 2011. Now I have a wool stash that has taken over several closets and a couple of large wooden chests. When I started rug hooking, it never occurred to me to buy a design on linen. My first rugs and mats were simple hearts and scallops. Okay, so that's where this is coming up. It is a bit Magdalena, isn't it? I mean, Magdalena didn't do a lot with hearts, but she did a little with hearts. She did a lot with scallops in the form of lamb's tongues. the piece that we were looking at is almost lacy, right? It's a solid lamb's tongue. Absolutely beautiful, super evocative of Magdalena. Later, I added sleeping chipmunks and menopausal mermaids, all designed on my own. Let's have a look at a menopausal mermaid, right? This is what I need in my life. Here is a menopausal mermaid. I just love it. And that kind of fantastical, kind of mythical sea monster slash dolphin character, right, in the sea. It's a bit of a Loch Ness, right? But you see old prince etchings of dolphins looking like this too. That looks like the tongue and the teeth coming out, blasting out. There is a menopausal mermaid. I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. 2012. Um, Great introduction. I'm not going to read all of it. I do not call myself an artist, but I can copy a photo or an object fairly well. I often draw something on paper and then cut it out and trace around it onto linen. So she's doing a stencil job just like Edward Sands Frost, right? Cutting something out and using it as a stencil. I love her too. Valentine hearts with chocolate around it. There you go. There you go. See, we are all thinking of different things and thinking of different references. I did a pattern that was a free pattern, maybe last year or the year before, that was chocolates. It was like two hands. It should still be on the Ribbon Candy Hooking site, or at least on the Facebook site. It was two hands coming in like almost like friendship hands, like fractory, holding a square Valentine, candy chocolate Valentine. And the reason I did it was because I just had bought these giant Valentines for the kids' teachers, right? One for each. And in Teddy's room, there's like 8 kids and 6 teachers because he's in an all autism class. Tons of Valentines, and it made me think about it. And I bought at least one for myself. And that when I opened up that box, there was something so appealing, not just in terms of flavor and chocolate and fillings, right? Because I bought the really good ones. I didn't buy like the crappy ones. I bought like the fancy ones. When I opened up that box, just the texture and the different shapes of the candies with the different sort of symbols and codes on the top of each chocolate. Some of them have a stripey and some of them a zigzag and some have dots. And I just thought, God, it's like a different language when you open the lid of the box. It's not just the food experience. It's not just the excitement of rationing them out if you can, but just the idea, just looking at them was absolutely beautiful. And this is why inspiration is absolutely everywhere, even in a box of chocolates, right? Mom, I love her too. She is too funny. She's just beautiful. She's just beautiful. She's got her little spectacles on too. I love her. I love her. All right. And then here's her stash. So her stash is now taken over. I'm not going to read the rest of the introduction because I think you're probably going to want this book. This is not one of the book giveaways. This is a brand new book. So this is prestige for Rug Cooking Magazine. Support them with a subscription. Support them by buying their books, right? My second book is coming out with Rug Cooking Magazine. That's the Design Like book. I think that'll be late in the year this year because we're just handing them in the very near future here. Support them. These are great books, right? These are great books. But this is a fairly new one. It is, let me give you the year on this. This is 2022, so this was just last year. And of course, we just covered the fairy tales one, and that's 2023. They're putting out some beautiful work, beautiful quality too. Now, we come to the chapter right away, and let me come to you. Let me come to you while we do. The first chapter, she wraps up the conversation because she's joined the Magdalenas, named after Magdalena Briner Eby, in Perry County, Pennsylvania. And she's telling you a little bit about that, right? 2 Magdalena rugs, the lollipop tree, and one of her stacked animals here. She's talking about inspiration, and she gives her author's note. And beautiful introduction. And from what we've read, I can tell I'm going to need to read all of it because she's also a beautiful writer, and that's a gift. In these books, it's a gift to have this beautiful lyrical writing that really speaks to you. So chapter 1 is called Knit and Crochet. So she's going to be pulling inspiration from knitted and crocheted items. And a quote from Elizabeth Zimmerman: properly practiced knitting soothes the troubled spirit, and it doesn't hurt the untroubled spirit either. That is sweet, isn't it? So she's talking about knitting, and she's about to pull inspiration from knitted and crocheted things. So here we go. I set that up, and we are looking at an argyle knitting, right? So I'm sure you know that the pattern that's called argyle is this diamond-driven pattern. And this is one of the rugs. It's actually a pillow that she's working on here. This is a close-up of the pattern. Note the variegated color change. That sort of red wine stripe running through the argyles, the diamonds. I actually have it sideways. It goes the other way. I just put it this way because it's larger and I thought you could see it better. She's using yarn. She's using yarn and wool strips. That red wine that goes to orange, that is yarn. And that is variegated color changing yarn. But then you can see the diamonds just like a sweater, right? It looks a bit tweedy. It looks a bit oatmeal-y. It's a patterned wool. Very exciting color choices here. So this is a hat tip to Argyle, and this is her inspiration piece. The Argyle design comes from the tartan of the Campbell clan from the county of Argyll in western Scotland. Authentic Campbell, and that's with a P, tartan is woven of green, blue, and black fabric in a distinct pattern that is also referred to as blackwatch tartan. In the 16th century, woven tartan fabric was cut on the bias to add stretch before it was fashioned into socks. So this is what I live for, these historical nuggets, right? So she's saying Argyle sweater inspiration. I can see the inspiration here. The sweater inspiration, and I love this sweater. The Life Ava. Okay. Not sure what that's about. We'll keep an eye on that. Good to see you, and I'm sorry you're leaving. The sweater is a great inspiration. It is missing that last line that's running through all of the diamonds. That is an optional. As you can see, it still reads. For me, without that line, it reads, personally, it reads less as Argyle. Samantha, good to see you. And more as Harlequin. And why not, right? It's basically the same design. So this is the inspiration for Argyle. She says, not all diamonds are equal. Some have more flaws than other, but don't we love them? Never a fan of Argyle sweaters or socks, I took this on as a challenge. I enjoyed hooking a geometric pattern on rug warp, and Argyle is simply diamonds, wonderful diamonds. I'm just skipping forward, and she says, my wool dyed, my wool's dyed with men's silk ties, introduce the garnet, giving me added value. So this is actually patterned wool, some of it. Interesting, because a close-up definitely looks like, let's look at more pictures of it, and then we'll understand better. Oh, it's a lot of different things, isn't it? This is the pillow itself. So I like how each one is handled differently. My eye is looking for a repeat color pattern, and it's not there. And I really like that it's not there. I also like the way there is sort of a pattern in the way that some of the diamonds are broken up into quarters, right? They are quartered. And one of them has stripes, right, in all four quarters. Interesting. Interesting. This is very Paul Klee, this conversation. It's shapes upon shapes, like stars upon nars, and some of them are broken up into quarters, and some of them are all four parts, all four components, hooked in the same material, and others are halved, right, 2 and 2. Very, very interesting. When you have a design composition that is this geometric and this strong, you can absolutely afford to play with the variety part of it. Color-wise, you don't need to strictly adhere to the Harlequin sweater pattern, right? That's very formulaic. You don't have to. You can go out on a limb. It's your eye immediately registers this as a pattern. It's comfortable. It falls within the parameters of something that you understand, and it is still comfortable if you take these argyles, divide them up, pattern them up differently. There doesn't have to be a pattern. This kind of composition can handle it. That was Argyle. The next section, we are still obviously in the knitted sweaters, crocheted area. This is fragments, inspiration, fragments of a knitted sweater. Now, this sweater to me looks like a super Scandinavian sweater, right? So she says, my first exposure to rug hooking was when I went in Decorah, when I was in Decorah, Iowa. I've been invited to the Norwegian American Museum. Oh, wow. In 1998 to teach weaving and felting. In one room, there were 2 ladies demonstrating rug hooking. I asked them to show me how rug hooking was done. This book is fantastic. This is, Kathleen, if you're watching, this book is fantastic. I love the historical sentiment. already you're circling back and tying in your personal story, and you're showing us these exquisite projects and pictures and these inspiration pieces. This is very generous. This is all just incredibly well done. I asked them to show me how rug hooking was done. They were happy to show me something that they said I'd be able to learn in 15 minutes. That was right, because that was all the teaching I ever received related to rug hooking. Boom, there you go, pulling up loops, right? Deborah said, I took a photo of the small section of my bedspread to use as a bed rug. I have 11 projects on my radar. 11 must be your lucky number. So it might be a while before I get to that. If you have time, Deborah, show us on the Facebook group so we can see that and we can see where your inspiration's coming from. That'll fit in really well with this conversation. I love that. So I'm not going to read the rest of it because it's fantastic. And it actually says, I think this was written by Håkon Groen Hensfold, which is obviously a very Norwegian name. So the inspiration is this lovely sweater. And we have seen these, right? These are always 100% wool. They usually have beautiful hardware, the frogs, right, that hook up in the front of it. Usually very expensive sweaters, very fine sweaters, very hard wearing and long wearing sweaters. Great inspiration. I have to say I love this rug even more. It's called Fragments. It is 26 by 19 wool yarn on rug warp, designed and hooked by Håkon Groen Hensfold of Skreia. Sorry, I got to change my glasses. Skreia, Norway, 2020. Absolutely beautiful. You know what I love about this piece? Let me stretch it. Let me bring it down and let's stretch it. I love that the center is totally harkening back to the Norwegian sweater design that we just saw, but the border is like a mizzy-mazzy, hit or miss, classic hooked rug border. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Because broken up like this, these independent squares look a little bit like quilt blocks, as they should, right? Where these are all the same patterns. All of this is interchangeable. Thank you, Deborah. This is a language that we all speak. It doesn't matter what the placeholders for the words are. What matters is we recognize churn and dash, barn door. We recognize the different patterns that we see in quilt blocks, and when they're translated as a different textile like a rug, it's still the same thing, isn't it? You call it whatever you call it. But the fact is we recognize the patterns. And I love how this has the feel of a quilt, but it's clearly pulled from a sweater knit. And in the border is that great and very, very prominent hat tip to rug hooking. That hit or miss, that blurred. I'm gonna put it back down to its smaller size. I might even tip it on its side. Let me tip it on its side. Let me see if I can do this live. I think it works because I want to look at the whole thing a little bit better. You see how it's just on the two sides that we're getting that sort of mizzy-mazzy, and it is a little bit on the left. I see a little bit of it creeping on the left. Right? It's very ghostly. Very, very, very exciting. You know what else is really exciting for me? The center is made up of a lot of primary colors and neutrals, right? That's really it. Red, blue, shades of blue, but they are pretty on point in terms of being the true color, right? Yellow, and then a lot of neutrals, the browns, the grays, the blacks, the whites. And then in the border, we're repeating that, but much softer, right? Much softer, like a ghostly echo of the colors that we're seeing in the center. It really is like a beautiful layer cake, isn't it? It really is. It's almost like your eye is opening and you're seeing just a sliver of all of these bright colors. I love the way that it's stacked, the composition. Everything on the diagonal is a little bit harder. On rug warp, a little bit easier because it's such a tight mesh, right? I just love the diagonal. I love the way we're seeing repeat patterns together instead of alternating, more like you would see in a quilt configuration. I just love the top and the bottom with the hit or miss. I love how hazy it is. I love how we're seeing just the neutrals and that yellow carried over. And I would have never thought to do the yellow whipping on the edge of this rug, but I can't think of anything better than this. I really can't. It's so good. So good. What an interesting piece. From Skreia, Norway. Håkon Groen Hensfold. Really beautiful. Really beautiful. So Ryan says, I have to do the reverse on tapestry. There's a bit with the Baltashell tapestry, right, that you're working on from, what is that, Rug Crafters? Is that a Rug Crafters pattern there's a fair bit of pattern to synthesize. Yeah, and Ryan, you said with that one in the Facebook group, didn't you say that part of the pattern wasn't present and you were a bit, um, I was going to say worried, but was more triggered, wasn't it? A little more triggered because some of it wasn't present on the pattern, and I'm guessing that you had to um, create it. You had to fill in the blanks. It's like a terrible form of Mad Libs when your pattern isn't all there and you're dealing with a vintage pattern, right? At least you have the original tapestry to consult. That I get easy for me to say, right? I'm not the one who's doing it. I can't wait to see more of that. But that's interesting. Yeah, you would have to do that in reverse. Maybe this is helpful, right? Maybe. It's a huge project. We're going to be enjoying that on gallery night, that's for sure. Moving forward to the crocheted Afghan. So if you do any crocheting, and this excerpt is from Julia Marjorie, Marjorie, Majury, or Majori. And she says, I wish I could say that I have an intriguing background, like searching for yarn in Morocco by hot air balloon, but my professional life is as an auditor, and it is devoid of excitement and individuality. That made it even more important for me to find pursuits to satisfy my need for creativity and color. My grandma taught me crochet when I was 5 years old, and though I've learned so many other fiber arts over the years, only crocheting takes me back to those treasured moments spent at my grandparents' farm. I am happy when I have a crochet project to work on in my basket. For Christmas one year, my husband gave me a kit to crochet Jane Crowfoot's Persian Tiles Afghan in the Eastern Jewels colorway designed by Lucia Dunn, Dunn. I was immediately drawn in by the gorgeous, cheerful colors and the intricate details of the pattern. So I'm going to stop there because it goes on much longer into the introduction. But again, beautifully written. This is like a stable of amazing writers participating in this book. The colors are absolutely beautiful. There are so many different kinds of crochet blocks. Now we are not just looking at a granny square, although with crochet blocks, usually, right, if it has any kind of floral configuration, we are looking at a derivative of the granny square. And it can be so filigree and so different like this. It's very far away um, from the 1960s and 1970s granny squares that I think we associate with um, an Afghan, right? A granny square Afghan. Gail, they're gorgeous. They're just gorgeous. So this was a sort of dictated colorway by Lucia Dunn. Beautiful, intricate pattern, and you could see how this would be super inspiring to find. And I like how there's just that little white stripe of 2 rows of granny squares, sort of shells around the border of it. That's really, really, really sweet. The X's too are really different because they're 3-dimensional. See the little X's coming forward? It looks like a little bit of rope work or a little bracelet making there. Very, very different. I'm looking at this and trying to figure out what the pattern is in my head. For the center, I don't know. But looking out, I recognize a lot of these stitches. It's just amazing when you get a good pattern, if you are a crocheter, how easy it is to do such unexpected varieties of a simple block. And crochet is typically quite simple, isn't it? It's just the one hook. It's not the 2 sticks. Um, yeah, I'm not saying that this is easy. I'm thinking to get the right tension and to get it to lie flat, and to get the colors right. Right, this is art. It's also inspiration, because I'm looking at this piece, Eastern Jewels rug. It's a 12-inch octagon. I'm sorry, it's a 12. Is it 12 inches? Yes, I'm sorry, my glasses. I can't tell if it's one a little apostrophe or two. 12-inch octagon in number 4 and number 6 cut wool on monk's cloth, inspired by Jane Crowfoot's Persian Tiles Afghan in the Eastern Jewels colorway designed by Lucia Dunn, hooked by Julia Majori of Elliotsburg, Pennsylvania in 2021. I'm going to mute for 1 second and blow my nose. Hopefully you don't hear this. I can tell I'm getting stuffed up. Hang on. All right. Hopefully you didn't hear that. Not that it was, totally grotesque. So just a great example of what we were looking at. It looks like it's like a hexie, isn't it? It looks like a variation of the grannies. They're not granny squares; they're Persian tiles. But let's just look back because it actually is a hexagon, right? Before you fluff out the border and turn it into a block, or before you connect them, right, with the corners. So it actually is a hexagon. So doesn't that just remind you that you really can pull from something as old and familiar as just granny squares, right? You can get there with that. This is a great chapter. This next project is called Ooh, um, Inspiration: Grandma's Traditional Granny Squares. And this is from Francie Appleman. I've always admired hooked rugs, especially the primitive folk art types. Me too, with animals and/or geometric designs. When my Fiber Arts Guild had Kathy Eckhouse come to teach a workshop, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. In the class, I worked on a kit with the drawing on linen and all of the wool strips provided. As soon as I was finished, as soon as it was finished, I was ready to start my own design. Kathy suggested I base my design on some other fiber art that was pleasing to me. And this is the product, right? Let me lift this just a little bit so you can see it better. So this says, be happy, be kind, be thankful, be joyful. What a beautiful sentiment. The piece is called Grandma's Tradition. It's 23.5 by 31.5, number 6 and number 8 cut wool on linen, designed and hooked by Francie Appleman of Turbotsville, Pennsylvania, 2020. And she said, I chose a granny square Afghan because my grandmother made them all the time. Her vision was failing, but she could crochet the blocks by feel and was always taking everyone's scrap yarns to use. The only yarn we bought for her was the black for the edges and highlights. I loved that they were scrappy and that they resembled stained glass. And she says, I designed my rug to have the blocks on the diagonal, which made the hooking a real challenge for a newbie. It was difficult to make a straight line and to keep the blocks the same size. I tried hard to reproduce the actual rings of segmented color, but failed miserably. So I went with random patterns of color, and I tried to keep all the blocks different. So she goes on to describe this project even more. I think this is extraordinary for someone who is new to rug hooking. This is a very ambitious pattern. It is a kind of composite pattern. In other words, a sampler, right? Looking at these different squares, it is certainly reminiscent of a granny square Afghan because it's made up of a bunch of diamonds, right? But we are seeing some quilt patterns that are completely original. We are seeing designs like pinwheel. Um, we're seeing what looks like almost like a cat's paw, the scallops, kind of a jigsaw pattern, waves. So we are seeing patterns that aren't typical crochet or quilt patterns and are just full blast creative. It's just a beautiful piece. I love the idea. I love the black frame. It's just like her granny's, right? Just like Granny's Afghan, right? Because of the amount of black, and also the colors are like Granny's, right? So these two things really hold together. What a great thing to have this and to have this, right? What a treasure. Two different generations, two very similar pieces of work that just go perfectly together. It's a beautiful tribute. It's a beautiful creative piece. The colors are just fantastic. I love blacks with like crazy lilacs, reds, purples. We've got some mixed wools in there. Goretti, great to see you. Happy Friday and welcome. And I love around the edge of the piece, I love that it's not a rectangle, right? I love how it's cropped at the corners, right? So it's a very unusual shape, and it has several hit or miss borders around it. I love how the hooking words, right, is tough. So this was ambitious too. Well done. Lots of ambitious things happening in this piece, and it came out beautifully. It came out absolutely beautifully. It is just stellar. Now, okay, so this is still in the same chapter. This is Filet Crochet or Filet Crochet. This is the inspiration, and this project comes from Peg McPherson. And the author's note says, filet crochet designs are usually made by using two types of stitches that form either filled or empty blocks, right? So think about that for a second. Look at the piece below that is filet or filet crochet. And some of them are open and some of them are closed, like with a granny square. You know how you can crochet a granny square and it can be open and it looks very filigree? Or you can crochet a closed granny square, not like the one that I just showed you from Francie's grandmother, but one that's completely solid, right? Just completely made up of color, no holes. Filet crochet designs are usually made using two types of stitches. The filled sections make up the motif, and the empty areas become the background. For a translation into a hooked piece, consider enlarging the motifs so that there will be less stopping and starting if you want to avoid Peg's challenge. So, Peg McPherson, the name of the crochet pattern is Hearts in the Round Runner. I especially liked that it was narrow and worked up quickly. Someone suggested that it would make a pretty rug design, so I enlarged the design, then traced it onto linen using my light box. I didn't want the rug to be too long, so I omitted some of the hearts. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I must say I did not like hooking all the small areas that were only a couple of loops long. Too much starting and stopping. I hear that. But I do think this is a pretty rug, and I'm happy to have it displayed near my crocheted rug. So we are looking at both, right? We're looking at both pieces, the fillet crocheted piece on the bottom and the version that Peg hooked on the right. I get what she's saying with these small motifs, right? The small green motif, it has a very Irish look in these colors. Really, really, really lovely. But there is a lot of stopping and starting, isn't there? You could see how that would be grating, you know, if it drove you crazy to have just small little runs of loops. It is almost works up like a cross stitch, right? Because of the way that you articulate or translate the loop, right? One or two here, and then one or two for the center. It's like it's a lot of small piecey stuff, but it's super effective, super graphically effective. It's very successful. You can see the piece underneath, the lace piece. To me, this is so bewildering because I've never done any kind of lace making. Um, so for me, anything to do with tatting or fillet or anything like that is just, it's magic. You know, it's complete magic. But you can see how this pattern would be fun. I'm thinking, yeah, I did put some examples. These are not in the book. I was looking at some fillet lace on eBay, not eBay, Google. And this was one of the patterns that came up as an antique pattern. And I was thinking, you know, I can really see how these really lovely patterns, there's a lot of lace patterns that feature a bird inside a wreath. These would work up so beautifully as rug hooking patterns. So my point in showing it is to say, this is a great source of inspiration. This is like an underground stream that runs through handcrafts for hundreds of years. Looking up lace patterns is going to be a great source. And there are books, there are Dover books and other books, um, you know, about lace patterns, right? So what a great source to pull from. Judy, I missed your comment. I'm so happy to see this. I have a million knit colorwork patterns, more than I'll ever get to make. But I've thought about transferring some onto weaving or rug hooking patterns instead. Absolutely, absolutely. And thinking back to the Persian tiles, right? Um, I'm just thinking as my mouth runs, I bet that it's possible if you have some crocheted squares that you like and you're thinking, um, tried it, not my thing, something like that, or I have a lot of small ones, don't know what to do with them. Because rug hooking backing is fabric, you could absolutely attach them as a border, right? Wouldn't that be really lovely? Or if you did some kind of thing like this. Wait a minute, I'm going to draw for a second. My brain's going wild now. You know, I'm thinking about how much I like macrame and stuff like that. If you did some kind of thing like this, that was a hanging, and it was hanging through the top through a piece of whatever, branch or whatever, and let's say you did something like this, and this is probably way out of proportion. It's a common, hang on. And I haven't even got my blocks right, but say you did something like this, and it's hanging on the top here, and you've got some crochet, even if it wasn't this many, this is out of proportion, because you would want something else in the middle there. But, you know, you could really do something cool. You could do like your house or whatever, but you could do a nice traditional piece like this, and have your crochet. You could really pull from your crochet squares, right? And if you're crocheting and you already have them, you could also do stuff with metallic threads, with fancy fibers, the eyelash stuff, right? Or framing it completely all the way around, right? Doesn't have to let off. You could frame right the way around. It could be so cool, even with just a piece with like a few crochet squares hanging from it, like macrame does, right? It's a neat idea. It's a neat idea, and we always talk about how to finish and frame our pieces, right? with another fiber, with these beautiful squares. Wouldn't that be something? Let me get this away from my face before I give myself one of these for Weathersfield tomorrow. My daughter has done that to me in my sleep, and it is the funniest thing in the world, but not when you have somewhere to go in the morning. So, all right, so that was really good inspiration. Let's keep going. Um, okay, this is another example of filet lace that I pulled off of the internet. So this is a more antique pattern. You know, I am going to say this also crosses over to sweater design, particularly Scandinavian sweater design. And Judy says there are a ton of archives online for 19th and early 20th century crochet patterns as well. That's fantastic to know. Um, and that would probably be easy to access if you search for archives crochet patterns. You know, crochet patterns, knitting patterns. Have you ever had a knitting machine? I've got one out there, and I haven't tried it yet. I always meant to try it. My brother-in-law for Christmas one year, knowing that I did a little bit of knitting. This was like 10 years ago. Asked me to knit him a sweater for Christmas that said the words heavy metal on it. And I just couldn't. I just couldn't in the end. I ended up paying somebody to knit it. But that's why I got a knitting machine at a yard sale, because I thought, you know, I'm going to make my own patterns. And I keep that knitting machine because I'm still thinking, if you've watched some of my early videos, older videos, I do in a couple of different videos stretch a sweater, um, regular sweater, not this is a blouse, but a sweater, a knit sweater that has shrunk, that is not shrunk, that is no good to unravel, that is no good to cut up, that maybe is too fair isle and has too many stitches underneath it that will unravel if I try to hook with it. I've stretched those right over my rug hooking frames or right in a hoop, and I hook right into sweater material. So if you have a sweater material that's been like feasted upon by a moth, or it's something that a child wore back in the day, or somebody you love who's passed on, and you want to hook right into that sweater, particularly with yarn, right? That will work great. So that's another kind of a weird fusion to think about. No point in throwing out sweaters. Sometimes you just love the color of the sweater, and you know you're never going to find it again, right? It's got little tweedy things in there or something, and you just love it, and you can't let it go. It reminds you of something, maybe an old school uniform sweater. You can hook right into that baby, right? Just stretch it, hook right into it with yarn, and you'll see that when you unstretch it, take it off the frame, you can wrap it around like a picture frame, right? Like just wrap it around, staple it. Don't put glass over it. No glass on textiles. But staple it around. You know, what a beautiful thing. Your own backing, already colored backing, right? What a beautiful thing. It's another great way to do a good fusion. But this reminded me of that too, because some of the sweaters, like the Scandinavian sweaters in particular, all these Nordic sweaters are super, and Peruvian sweaters too, are famous for being absolutely gorgeous, totally different color palette. Um, but they'd be great to hook into. And you could even, if you picture these Nordic sweaters that are often black and white or red and white, right, that like the one we looked at earlier, if you think about it, if you wanted to hook into something with that kind of graphic pattern, you could hook into, for example, say that it's black and white, say that it's all black and white. You could hook into the parts that are just, for example, white or black, and color them, like hook with colored thread. Now, wouldn't that be something? It would almost be doing like filling in an adult coloring book. If you did that and you just colored in some of the compartments with yarn, that would be a fun that would be a fun project. That would make a great textile too for a pillow or upholstery, right? That would be really cool. Pamela Hunt, I'm thinking of Alice Starmore Designs. Um, Pamela says, Cindy, oh yes, Selbu. I don't know that reference. Selbu. Selbu, is that a brand? Cindy, oh gosh, I missed a lot. Norwegian stranded knitting. I'm working on a pair of okay, so you meant Selbu knits using that technique. Um, Dang autocorrect, right? Isn't it? Doesn't it drive you nuts? And Pamela says color work knitting, Fair Isle. Cindy, oh yes. And then Country Gal says, I have some of my grandma's embroidery and doilies that I put away. What a great inspiration to get them out and to use them in making a rug hooking pattern. Absolutely. You could just put them on a photocopier, photocopy them. You could turn them into a stencil if you wanted to. You do a repeat pattern just with the doilies that she made. And if they're different doilies, different shapes, different sizes, man, what a composition that would be, right? Just like the one that we just saw, with the inspiration was the granny Afghan, and it's just a bunch of things that are not the same, right? These are not the same. They're all different inside this composition, but they all work. Imagine just a collection of doilies that you could stack up Andy Warhol style and just different ones in different compartments. Your eye is going to register it as a geometric. You can do whatever you want with it. You can color it like crazy too. These are geometrics are always stable compositions. It's always going to work for you, and that's a great idea. Pamela says, my favorite designer. I love her sweaters. Isn't that funny? You're finding things in common talking about this. They are eternal for sure. They absolutely are. So I had flipped forward to this. I'm probably going to go for another. I'm probably going to stop at 8:30. I'm struggling a little bit, but I'm having a lot of fun. Let me take a little more medicine here. Notorious. Gotta love Duran Duran, right? Oh, that Notorious. Gotcha. RBG. Okay, got it. Why does my brain always go to Duran Duran? Inspiration Lace. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It was her lace jabot, the scarf thing, that captured me. That and the feisty strength of the woman. Wouldn't it be fun to do a rug to honor her? Hang on a second. I got to blow my nose again. Hang on just a second. Sorry about that. But wouldn't it be fun to do a rug to honor her? But I do not hook portraits, so I didn't think too much more about it. Not long after I had those thoughts, I saw that Old Tattered Flag had a pattern called Grandmother's Lace. I was drawn to it because I love all kinds of needlework, but I hesitated, not wanting to buy the pattern because I really didn't need another project. And this is Deborah Smith. I'm sorry, this is Deborah Smith saying this. Um, when a few friends and I decided to work on a joint challenge inspired by the notorious Ruth, I had the perfect reason to buy the pattern I had been lusting over. There you go. All you need is to be enabled, right? That's all you need in this world. Um, I had the Old Tattered Flag make the pattern slightly larger so that I could adapt it to my own RBG design, and I hooked away at that lace jabot. Notorious RBG died about the time we finished our challenge. I like to think that she would have approved. She absolutely would have approved. This is a beautiful, beautiful piece. 50 by 60, number 4 to number 8 cut wool on linen, adapted from the design by Old Tattered Flag, hooked by Deborah Smith of Landisburg, Pennsylvania, 2019. She nailed it. She absolutely nailed it. You're right. So beautiful. So let's look at this inspiration photo too. Close up of a handmade lace from Spain. Any type of lace can inspire a hooked rug. Make it simpler than the actual lace, but keep the lacy effect. So this is the inspiration piece here. And I get what she's saying. It's not a natural leap, is it, to go from this to this? A jacket is a little different because like this is very fine, right? This is very fine and very filigree. This almost looks like caning up here. This looks more like a collar to me. I mean, it is a collar, but you know what I mean when you see this kind of lace. I don't know enough about lace to know what it's called when it has these loopies. Do you know that? Because there's got to be a term. The loops are usually, this is like thicker, right? The collars and stuff are usually thicker than this kind of lace making. And maybe it's just the thread that you use. I ought to know this, being born in the Netherlands and spending time in Belgium. Lace making is obviously a huge thing. Um, I just think this design is exquisite. Let's get away from my face and come back here. Marielle, oh, can't wait till tomorrow to watch the replay of the video. I peek at the image is lovely. Oh, it'll be there for you. It is just really, really beautiful. And you see how there's little buttons, right? Because when she had on her robe, she had the collar and then there were like little buttons under it. The little buttons are there. This is such a beautiful design. It's really absolutely gorgeous. It's tatting. Is that it, Pamela? It's just called tatting? And does tatting, I'm going to be full of questions now that somebody bit. Sorry, Pamela, if you don't, I don't expect you to know all the answers, but does tatting always use, how does tatting work? For example, do you have to work in rounds? Like, does it have to be a circular pattern working from the center out? Or can tatting still be like a strip, like a rectangular strip? Could you make, for example, like a little scarf or like something long and narrow that was tatted instead of something that was round? And does tatting have to be made up of loops? Is there I should just look this up. I'm just wondering, because in this example, as a person with a degree in costume, I'm looking and going, well, what's connecting it are the loops, right? They're connected to each other by these like hairline um, little connector threads of lace. Super, super fine and filigree. I'm looking at the hook drug version. I'm not looking at an actual handheld. Tatting is made with a small shuttle. Oh, that's right. Okay, so I'm picturing being in Belgium, and I'm picturing the thing where something is pinned to a board, and there's all of these. I've seen this in early American houses too. There's all of these strings coming off of it with these little wooden peg type tools. That's tatting, right? I never got the hang of it. It seems um, fussy. And it is, right? That's how you get something beautiful and fine, right? It's something that's time consuming. This is why Queen Elizabeth loved all of this stuff because it was so time consuming. It represented many hours of someone else's life, right? Deborah says, you use a tattle. I know nothing else. That's okay. I didn't know that much. Pamela says, my grandma taught me how to tat. Yes, it's made with crochet thread normally. There are different patterns for it. Yeah, my grandma made edgings for our pillow slips. Oh my God. Most of the pieces done are loopy. Interesting. It must have been an easy pattern to achieve. I feel like when I've seen it, bobbin lace. Okay, yep, good. I feel like when I've seen it, and you see, it's like there's lots of threads, the crochet lace or the bobbin lace thread working at the same time, right? And it's almost like a solar system. Remember in school when you used to do a solar system and you had all these like strings hanging down with these styrofoam planets, and in the car on the way over to the auditorium where you were supposed to display it, this is so specific, they would always get tangled up, right? It would be like junior heart attack. Um, that's what it reminds me of. You have all of these components, like all of these little wooden things that are holding the different threads, and they're kind of laying in different places, in my mind, waiting to get tangled up like the solar system. I bet you got that reference, even though that was insane. Let me have another sip. It's helping. It's helping with brain movement. Tatting is one small shuttle in hand, no board. Okay, so that is different. I'm thinking of something else. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Good information. I love learning stuff. Love it. All right, so that was an absolutely beautiful piece of Deborah Smith, RBG Notorious. Absolutely amazing. You know, I didn't even realize in looking at it that it looks like it has a, oh, is this going to be a crocheted border? It could be a crocheted border. You see the border on this, right? It looks almost like a chain. How do you think that is made? Let me see if it says. Nope, it doesn't say. Creative tip. The basis for the RBG rug on the facing page is a purchase pattern featuring a lace doily, but any lace pattern could be enlarged, adapted, drawn on linen, and incorporated into a rug design. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm wondering about that border. Let me pull it open a little bit for you so you can chime in here. Um, Oh, that is really pretty, isn't it? You know, it echoes like the sort of loopies, right? The loop-de-loops. It really echoes the shape of that nice big open space, right? Very lofty, big open loose loops. Really beautiful. Pamela says it was hard for a left-handed person to learn. Oh my God, I bet it was, but I learned how to do it. I did it better with knitting and crochet. So here comes one last question on this subject, and then I'm gonna stop, and we're gonna look at the next slide. Could you do tatting with a different material? Like, could you do tatting with sock yarn? Is there any reason why is it scalable? Is there any reason why you couldn't um, save the tool, right? If it's a shuttle or a tattle or whatever the thing is, um, could you upsize the tool and use? I don't want to learn. I'm just curious, and use different material like beautiful variegated sock yarn. Wouldn't that be amazing? Uh-oh. So I'm going to say this has great contrast, this piece. I mean, this is incredible contrast. This is just absolutely masterly. I'm completely in love with everything about this piece. And as a tribute piece, mind-blowing. I would be so curious about doing, if I were going to do a piece like this that was lace, I think I would be very tempted to do a rectangular piece, like for example on black, keeping it simple, and to use a very intricate fillet type lace pattern, but Uh-oh, there's all kinds of things happening now. My head's going to explode. Variegated yarn, like sock yarn. I mean, wouldn't that be amazing? Like color changing, very filling. That would drive you nuts, but I bet you could punch it. I bet you could punch something like that that looked like fillet lace with variegating color changing yarn. It could also be on a white background. That would also be gorgeous. Wouldn't that be amazing? And then maybe in the center is like the bird motif or whatever's in the center of a lace motif, right? You could initials in a bird, initials in a sheep. Whoa, like that could really be something. Pamela says you can tat with whatever will fit into your shuttle. Okay, that's very clear. Maybe there are larger shuttles for using yarn. Interesting. And Judy says the shuttle takes very fine thread, but I imagine you could have a larger one constructed. Now this has really got me go. I don't have the time for this right now, but this could be the like this. I'm super inspired right now. Um, I'm super inspired by all the projects in this book, but this one just got me in the heart. All right, let's come back over to this one. Chapter 2 is pieced quilts. So inspiration taken from quilts, and this is a log cabin quilt, isn't it? This is the pattern. This is the combination log cabin design. This is an Amish design, right? Log cabin, but this is the Amish version that is often called light and dark, or lightness and darkness, or daylight and darkness, or sunshine and shadow. It has lots of different names, but what it is a square, and half of the square is light and half of the square is dark. And depending on how you place the squares, you can make different patterns. This is a diagonal stripe, but you can also do very intricate patterns with the light and the dark, just halvesies, right? So this is a great, and this piece is done by Lynn, Lin Keller, Keller. I was inspired to hook this rug by one of my favorite quilt patterns, the log cabin. The design is created by placing light and dark fabrics in particular ways to look like stacked logs in a cabin wall. I have a large log cabin quilt hanging in my living room that I made years ago. I thought a rug of similar design would complement that quilt. Absolutely. It took me very long to hook furrows. So this rug is called furrows. It is 24 by 36 number 8 cut wool on linen using as is and hand dyed woolen yarn. Designed and hooked by Lynn Keller of Shermansdale, Pennsylvania. Man, Pennsylvania is a hornet's nest of talent, isn't it? I'm sure these are all buddies that are contributing, and guild members who are Magdalenas who are contributing to the book. But what a crazy amount of talent in Pennsylvania. Huge shout out to Pennsylvanians for your originality, for your adhering to old time crafts and traditions, right? The history of so many crafts. You are such talented people. All of you are. But man, there is a hornet's nest out there. I'm telling you. Country Gal says, I love the log cabin one. I've made several of these quilts. This is a fun quilt to make. I'm going to say, I am not as good of a hooker as many of you are, as most of you are. But I did a design that was kind of like a P. Buckley Moss inspired skaters in dark, like black costumes against a gray sky. And the border was log cabin. And man, that played me. Partly because I have young kids still, right? I can't get away from them ever. Not that I want to. Um, but I remember really struggling with the hooking part of it because it required concentration, and that is not something that is present within me. It's not I'm not hardwired to concentrate on anything. So I found I kept overshooting, even though I had the pattern drawn on my backing, I found it difficult. I do remember in making that pattern, I was researching this form of quilt, the log cabin, and to remember, because this was one of our New Year's episodes, or right around New Year's Eve, a couple years ago, I think that we talked about this in this particular piece that I did for ribbon candy hooking. The red in the center represents the hearth, like the fire in the hearth. So the warmth of the hearth slash home. That's why usually you do get a red center in a log cabin quilt. Absolutely beautiful piece. Creative tip. There are many log cabin quilt designs, and they vary on the way the light and dark pieces are lined up. Okay, so that's just what we were saying. I put another one into the show. Let me see. I think it's probably the same. I put an antique quilt into the show that's called Sunshine Shadow. So you can see this is a different configuration. When you look at the lights, you see it's making squares. It's making interior squares that are tipped, right? So they're not aligned as a square. They are a diagonal square. We are still seeing the red centers, right? And the red centers actually overlap into the white part, right? Really putting an emphasis on that central hearth, the warmth of home. Juju says, hand quilting my pineapple log cabin as we speak. You know, and the pineapples are the super, super, super intricate log cabins. They are the super fussy and fine ones. Please show it. You can show it in the Facebook group too. You're very welcome to. You know, I have to say, I'm going to say it, which I do from time to time. Our Facebook group, which is called Rug Cooking and Punch Needle Club, if you have gone off Facebook because you have been burnt or you have been troubled or triggered by nasty anonymous people on there, we have at this point, Kirsten, you, me, and your buddy that is doing. I think there's three of us doing admin right now. I'm hardly ever on. Um, there's at least three admins on right now, and it is such a good vibe in this Facebook group that we just don't see that. We've set the page up in a way that you have to check before. I'm trying to think of your friend's name that does the admin. Isn't that awful that I can't remember? What is wrong with me? Let me take some medicine because it's right there, and I write to her all the time, and I'm such a jerk, and she does such a good job. We have to approve every comment before it hits the thing. So we don't get people saying snarky, crappy things to each other just for kicks. We don't have that. So you're always welcome to post things in our group that we talk about on Coffee Time and Cocktail Times. And if other people don't get the reference, um, we don't care, right? It's all inspirational. It's all textile. It's good for me. Feel free to post your pineapple quilts or anything that you're working on out there, particularly in light of this conversation with this fabulous book. We are still in the quilting chapter. It could be infinite, this chapter alone, right? I mean, it truly could be infinite. Let's look at the next piece that I pulled. I didn't pull everything as usual because I really want you to invest in this book. This is a great inspiration for you because I know that you do more things than rug hook, right? You're not cheating on ruggers when you rug hook. You are just crossing over. Sometimes I drink cocktails, sometimes I drink wine, right? Sometimes I have vegetarian meals, sometimes I have tons of meat and schmeat and spam and fish and all kind. We all like variety. With you choose how you get your variety. Country Gal says I don't do Facebook because of those reasons. I hear that, and I'm telling you, I was so reluctant to be on Facebook and form a group because at one point in my life when I had my kids, I was much more political. I've chilled out a lot because I just can't. But I do tend to get sucked into this is so stupid, but conversations that are um, historically incorrect, right? So this is like one of my things as like a tour guide that specialized in history and someone who loves history. Seeing people post stupid things and stupid sentiments about the history of Thanksgiving and these are the kinds of things that I can't abide. And I went off Facebook too several times because I got so triggered and I got into online, you know, pee offs with total strangers and found myself not sleeping and taking extra sleeping pills and thinking it ain't worth it. It just ain't worth it. So I'm very careful about what I do on Facebook now, and I pretty much only go on our page because and sometimes people send me screenshots of shows that happened on other pages, and I think I'm going to need to take an extra sleeping pill because it has nothing to do with me, but this is very triggering. It's amazing what people say online. It really is, and that's a whole conversation for Freud, right? To be reanimated and brought into, but it's really bad. But honestly, our group is not. What a lot of nice people. We just hit 14,000 2 days ago. So I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of everybody who's on there, and I'm very proprietorial about it, although I'm hardly ever on there. Formed the group, and I'm hardly ever there, but you are, and you are all putting fantastic content out, and you are so helpful and kind to each other that I feel the community that's been created there is remarkable and unique, right? So if there's even the slight thought of being back on Facebook, think about just checking out that group because you will be many, many, many posts a day that are just beautiful posts, such nice people. So I'm on Facebook for inspiration mostly, all art groups. Yeah, I think that's the way to do it because it's so easy to get sucked in. You don't want to spend your time doing wind up stuff, right? Nobody needs that. You don't need that. You want to spend your time doing creative stuff that's positive, like geometric quilting, inspiration, geometric quilts. There are so many kinds of geometric quilts. This tree pattern is called lots of different things in lots of different places. There are so many trees that are patchwork blocks, right? patchwork is different. Thank you, Juju. Patchwork is different than applique because with applique you are applying, you are appliquing, you are applying one shape onto another with stitches or double-sided interfacing or whatever you want to do. But with patchwork you are piecing, right? You are putting pieces together like a puzzle to create a block. It's not the same as applique. They're the two different branches of quilting. Even within just the tree category of patchwork or piecing quilting, it is infinite, the kinds of trees that you can create. This is a beautiful example because you're seeing the top half of the triangle is the tree, the bottom is broken right down the middle with the trunk, and then you get the two sort of ivory or plain sides. Lots of variation. Why can this handle this kind of variation? Because it's a geometric pattern, right? So this is done by Tanya McNutt. Oh, I love that name, McNutt. This piece is one of my early rug hooking projects and is based on a contemporary quilt design. I attended a class called Quilts to Rugs, taught by Cindy McIntosh. She provided the class with a variety of books and images to inspire the students to design their own pieces based on quilts. Being a new rug hooker, I chose a design that was not too complicated. The design was hand-drawn by me onto the backing. I used mostly recycled wool and some new wool in the borders. This is fantastic. This is just a gorgeous piece. Geometric trees wall hanging, 20 by 38, number 5 cut wool on linen, designed and hooked by Tanya McNutt of Truro, Nova Scotia, Canada, 2007. I absolutely love this piece. I love this is like a desert palette, isn't it? Little bit desert, little bit spicy. I'm thinking of like a 1980s spice rack, you know, like one of those Lenox ones with all the little houses. Super spicy, very, very pretty palette. Some beautiful roses, dusty kind of rose, wood rose, like the nice light kind of khaki ecru colors, bright celery color, evergreen color, some mixed soft lemon yellow, dark kind of sort of hickory brown, really coppery brown, really beautiful. This also reminds me of like a cupboard. I used to paint my cupboards back in the day. Allie, good to see you. I used to paint the cupboards, and I never did this design, but I'm sorry, I just kicked the radiator. I could see doing this as like a kind of a stencily painted piece in the kitchen as well. It's just a beautiful pattern, and the colors slay me. They are so soft, but the pattern is very well embedded. It's a beautiful, strong design. Deborah says I use small quilting pattern for my 6x6 exchange project. I'll post that on Facebook too. Oh, please post that on Facebook. And Deborah, is that the current? Challenge? Just so you know, in our Facebook group, my good buddy Jean Coates hosts. I think this is the third, maybe even the fourth rug exchange where you do a small like 6x6 square, and you are matched up to another person in the group. And it's not like I get you and you get me. Like you get a name, this person gets a name, everybody gets matched up, and you send out your rugs, and everybody just has a little piece of that rug hooking community out there. I'm gonna choke myself up just talking about this one thing. It's just such a nice thing, I think, and a lot of beginners participate in the rug exchange because they're like, I want to see how other people hook, right? And maybe the follow through thought is, and check. It's Teddy again. Can you believe it? And check. Um, Still running the live show, baby. I'll talk to you later. Oh, sorry, Mom. Um, a lot of people want to just look and see, what does it look like? And is mine okay? Is mine all right? Is my hooking all right? If I could just, because not everybody lives in an area where they see other hook drugs. You can't just go to the antique store in every part of the world and you find antique hook drugs, new hook drugs. Some people aren't in a community with other hookers and they're like, I would just really like to see a piece in person to know that I'm doing okay. And a lot of people join as beginners, join the challenge for that reason. And I think it's a beautiful thing to share one of your early pieces with a stranger. And typically what happens, I think, is people go on each other's. This is what I did. I did it twice, and then I had to stop because time. But I would go on that person's page and see what they were into, right, for inspiration. Like if you do a lot of spinning and weaving, or you keep animals, or you have a yellow lab or something, I'm probably going to want to try to do that just because I want you to like the piece that I send you. I want you to be very happy and surprised. I think a lot of people do that. It's not required. It's just an idea. But what a great thing to join that exchange. What a lot of fun. And you know you have a gift coming toward you, and there's usually quite a few months that you have to complete the exchange, so it's not super stressy. Deborah says, yes, the current exchange. I'll be sending it out next week. Oh, how fun. Oh, how fun. Jean is so, and I know Jean will probably watch this in reruns. Jean, thank you so much for continuing to do that, right? Because it's a lot of work. Logistically, it's a lot of work getting everybody matched up. You can imagine, right? I'm going to do one more and then I'll probably log off for the night just because I am struggling a little bit and I do want to get rest so I can go to that thing in Weathersfield tomorrow and report back with some new information. Melanie, good to see you. It's okay that you're late, but Melanie, I'm going to be early tonight because I'm super snuffleupagus tonight, and I'm all prickly. So I'll do at least one more, I think. This is a good one. You know what? Let's just finish out. Okay, this will be the end of the quilt chapter, so this makes a lot of sense to just do this one. And then I want to show you one thing before we log off. Whoa, whoa. Um, Geometric quilt. Another sort of inspiration being a geometric quilt. And this is by Tracy Granger. This is the piece that we just started to look at. We will look at more closely. Oops, hang on. Let me flip this on its side. And come here, you stinker. Let me flip this on its side. Transform. Let's shoot it. Counter. And I can open it up a little bit more for you. So Inspiration Geometric Quilt. This is Tracy Granger. We know that name. I enjoy hooking large geometric patterns on rugwarp. A lot of people in this book love rugwarp. I wonder if that's a Pennsylvania thing, because she's in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and this is from 2020. This is called Auditioning the Stash, number 2, like Roman numeral 2. 31 by 54, number 5 cut as is and over-dyed wool on rugwarp, adapted from a design by Free Spirit Quilt Patterns. And Free Spirit is K Facet, right? Hooked by Tracy Granger. I enjoy large geometric patterns on rugwarp. The quilt pattern all stacked up would allow me to create movement. I have this book. I have the book that's from, with a choice of light, medium, and dark wools, while still being able to add some eye candy. In my opinion, some of my selections work better than others. Unlike many rug hookers, I don't pre-cut a bunch of wool worms before I get started with hooking. Instead, I cut as I go. If I do have an extra wool strip or two, I have a large piece of rugwarp with a geometric design of 3 by 3 blank squares drawn on it, ready for me to use up any leftovers. More later on that. I'm going to stop there because I want you to get this book, right? And I want you to read this yourself. That's a great idea. Did you just catch that? So when she's hooking a pattern, if she has a few leftover worms, because she cuts as she goes right over to her project and she hooks them in. Right, it's another quilt geometric inspired piece. She hooks them right in. Now that is absolutely brilliant. Isn't that a stitch in time saves 9? Do you do anything like this? Because I know my life. I'm not going to move this camera, but if you could see like the epic hoarders style mess that's around me in every room of my life, not just in my studio, but everywhere. I need to do stuff like this, like like staunch the bleeding as you go, because otherwise I will end up with tens of thousands of wool strips and unfinished projects, which I have. It's good to clean as you go. Stitch in time saves 9. Country Gal says, stunning piece. Love all the quilt inspiration. Me too. Melanie says, I was punching and lost track of time. That's a good reason. That's a good reason. Can't wait to see what you're punching. I love the thing that you just posted in the group too. So this is a great piece, and Tracy's saying, I think some of the color combos are more successful than others. Well, that's bound to happen, isn't it? This is a great design that's made up of overlapping the same square, right, like a diamond square, but some have borders, some don't. It's actually just 2 I'm seeing that have the borders with the square, right? Like, what's that called? Barn door, when it's open in the middle and it's got the 4 squares on the corner. I do strive to be like an encyclopedia of quilt designs in my head, but I'm not there yet. And yeah, I can see it might be this piece that she's talking about. And she won a yellow ribbon for this piece. Look at this, best in show. Congratulations, Tracy. Absolutely, you deserve it. This is the inspiration piece over here. It's a great quilt pattern too. It's a good scrappy pattern. When you want to scrap it out. What a great use of colors. And of course you're going to like some color combinations more than others. Of course you are. That's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? Juju says, they certainly do, Judy. I own several and hoard the fat. We are such hoarders in this craft, aren't we? Judy says, Kay Fassett and Brandon Mabley have so many inspirational books. All right, so now because you said the magic words, I'm going to have to show you the project that I'm working on. Let me close out this, and I'm going to show you what I'm working on, because this is like a class that I'm hoping to give in the near future at some of the quilt stores around me. Auditioning the Stash is a beautiful piece. This was absolutely gorgeous, and this is where we'll pick up next time on Monday when we start our coffee time episode. I will come back into this book, and we will go into the applique chapter. Applique is the other kind of quilt making that is not piecing, right? That is not patchwork piecing. So I want to show you a couple of things while we're fooling around on a Friday. So this is the piece that I'm working on. Let me see if I can bring it over to you here. It's on my. You know, it's not gonna look that good. Let me take it. Let me bring it up to you this way. It's probably not gonna look that good in the evening light. But I'm creating this this my scissors, right, with the little fairy on it. The color is awful. I'll give you good color next week. But I have been hooking with quilting fabric. It's all Kay Fassett. It's a jelly roll, and I'm keeping track as I go. And it's gonna have this. I'm going to show you the design that I'm working. It's a very simple design. It's for teaching at quilting stores. And got my fiber tape on there. First I tried it on latch hook because I was hoping to avoid using a hoop or a frame. With the quilting fabric, I was just not happy with any thickness with the way that it was coming out. So I'll give the details on this when I'm further evolved, but the pattern looks like this. It is basically a few flowers and sprigs that I'm going to add. And the basket will be, the flowers in the basket will be wool. I'm debating about velvet as well, but the whole background is a Kay Fassett jelly roll, right? So it's like yellows and greens, and the colors are awful, but in person it is unreal. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to cross over to the quilting market, right? To build the company a little more. Company has to get beefed up a little more, and there's only X amount of ruggers on Earth. So in between where the stems are, I have cut a bunch of different colors of green praddy leaves. So I'm going to praddy out the leaves, and then I'm going to hook the flowers. I might do velvet, I'm not sure, but this is my kind of color palette for hooking the flowers and these kinds of reds, because they are the opposite to, starting with like the tomato, going through some raspberries, some salmon colors, a bit of a like lilac aubergine. And then my leaves are all different colors of green, from army green, like army green blanket color, to celery and sage greens, really light greens, very cool greens. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm figuring it out as I go so I can teach it. And I'm really hoping that people who are also quilters will be able to, I'm trying to evolve a series of patterns that are just natural crossovers for quilters who have leftover quilting fabric. And like we're saying tonight, crossing over to handwork, right? Being able to actually hook with your leftover quilting bits is a big deal. You do have to figure out sizing and backing. You do have to figure all that out. So I'm going to be doing this as a kit, and I'm hoping to teach this around Connecticut, New England for the time being. So that is on the horizon. We were talking about Kay Fassett, so I had to spill. I took it as a sign. But I want to show you something that I found last weekend that is absolutely killing me. And I need more information on it. And I wonder if you are the missing link. So hang on. Here it is. I was at an antique store last weekend, and in Putnam, Connecticut, and great antique stores there. And I found this rug, and it's not an antique, and it smells like somebody pooped on it, to be honest, but I still really love it. It is a machine-made rug. It's got this kind of a back, which I normally would not buy. I'm building up to something. I'm going to actually cut the back off. You can see that it is, wait a minute. I'm going to give you a peek into the back because I'm definitely not keeping the back attached. Let's just open it up a little bit. It's probably a made in China. Nothing wrong with that. There's no glue or anything on the backing. I need to find out more about this company. So I'm going to tell you what I know about it. This is almost like cheesecloth, the back of it. I mean, it's really bad. But it seems to be, I can't tell if it's punched or hooked, right? Very, very well. It's very well done regardless. It seems to be on monk's cloth. There is some loss. I'm going to show you the design. And I'm going to tell you what the tag says. And you tell me if you've ever heard anything about this, because I need to research this. I don't know. I'm looking for the tag. I don't know the designer. Um, and I found the designer online, but she doesn't do rugs anymore. So I don't know anything about her rugging past. I can see her contemporary art. It's not exactly my thing. This is. Her name is Deborah, this is from 1991, Delisi, Delisi, Brumfield of Walpole, New Hampshire. Anybody out there in New Hampshire who knows anything about this? I do appreciate most work. I do. And it's like I call a spade thing, because I love Claire Murray. I still have to visit Claire Murray. I still have to visit her. Maybe while I'm out there early next month. I, some commercially made rugs, right, are great. They're great for me. I appreciate their place in the history of rugging. I love handmade stuff too. It all has a place for me, right? It all has a place for me. I don't like to be fooled by something. That's a different story. This I could not pass on. So take a look at this image. I'm going to try to back it up. Color wise, 1991. Colors are not good tonight, but do you see this crazy border? It's got some loss, right? It's got some loss right here. So I'm going to hook that in. Do you see this craziness? Like, do you see this coming out of the 80s Art Deco kind of like it's retro Art Deco? Because in the 80s, this was what we saw. Look at these crazy colors, right? This pine green. Look at the Wedgwood blue sky. Look at this great graphic sheep, right? I mean, this is absolutely beautiful. All the shades of terracotta mixed with the pinks. I just, I just, I couldn't leave this there. It was $45. It's a large rug. It totally smells like poop, but I'm putting this over the mantle, right? I'm going to give it a good whatever. I'm going to air it outside first. I'm going to take the cheesecloth off, see how much smell that removes. I'm going to try to research this company. I could not get anywhere online, so I'm going to write to the Walpole Historical, sorry, whole body's in the thing here, Walpole Historical Society or Town of, see what I can find out about Deborah and about this company when she had it, because I can see there's pillows and stuff online, but no other rugs. And it's not tufted, it's looped. Gorgeous rug, yeah, right, 45. And the thing is, to me, I love it. It's going to go over the mantle. That's exactly where it's going to go, is over the mantle. I just love it. And to me, it represents a quest, right? I really want to figure out, even if I have to drive to Walpole, New Hampshire, I want to figure out when this company existed, for how long they existed, what their other patterns are, because if I love that, it's like music, right? If I love this song so much, I probably like some of your other songs too. Same thing with this rug for me. If I like this rug so much, probably like your other stuff too. So I just want to find out more about it. It represents a mystery. It represents an adventure, right? So for $45, I got it, right? It's not like $45 is nothing, right? Believe me, for me, $45 is something. When my bank account is right there on the edge of the red, it's definitely something. But it was exciting to find it, and I've showed you rugs in past episodes from that stall as well. I'm not even sure if that's wool. I'm thinking it's probably not wool, but it's so soft. It's so pretty. It has some areas of loss because it said right on the tag that she had put that in the washing machine. And I know why, because it smells like poops. But at the same time, it worries me a lot. It's super soft. It's super beautiful. I love the color palette. And worst case scenario, it's going to be a beautiful, yeah, it still smells. I don't know what that's like, smelling my fingers. It's a compulsive thing. I can't stop. It's it's so beautiful and it's so soft. I shouldn't touch it to me because yeah. But there are like lots of areas of loss, and it's even like little stuff like, can you see in here that there's like a little bit of loss? So I'm going to take out my Persian wool. I have Persian wool in every color. It's mostly vintage because I hoard um, embroidery kits from like Savers and Goodwill and different stores and yard sales. When there's an embroidery kit with little bits of Persian wool, believe me, I got plenty of yellows, oranges, and browns because so many of them are from the 70s. But I always snap them up when they come in other colors. And although this is not the same texture as Persian wool, I have Persian wool about this weight because it is yarn in just about every color. And the backing does definitely look like monk's cloth, so that's good. And it's probably like a 2-ply. There's lots of areas of baldness. If you can see in here, you can almost see right through. So I have to think about that. I mean, this is not an antique, right? This is 1991. But I do have to think about, there's a lot of loss here. You see all this in the body. So I have to think about how far I want to go with the restoration. There are some areas of restoration like this that has to be done because that will drive me nutso. But it's an interesting piece. It was new. Last time I go to the store quite often. It's the big antique center in Putnam. I think it's called the Antique Marketplace in Putnam, Connecticut. Um, it wasn't there last time I was there, and it was there on the floor with the rugs that I've seen many times that are way overpriced, and there's a moth in there. So I didn't touch those, but I could tell that this was not really wool, and I didn't smell it when I bought it. But that wouldn't have stopped. The smell would not have stopped me because I think the design is just so fabulous. The little corners with the leaves in the corner, right? It's a bit of a quilt type design, and it has a sheep on it. So I'm probably going to hang it up over the mantle, and you'll see that behind me on coffee time. And as soon as I get the time, I will I'll think of the best way of hooking the parts that are not present. But it just goes to show you just don't know. It is a commercial piece, and maybe that's not interesting for you. But I don't know who this Deborah is, Deborah Brumfield. I don't know who she is, and I love what she drew. So everything else aside, I just touched my face with the hand that touched that smell. I will see you on Monday at coffee time, right at noon Eastern Central Time. In the meantime, I will be on for Designing Like Paul Klee. If you love design, if you love whimsy, if you love color, if you love talking technically about color, you want to come on Sunday for Designing Like Paul Klee. It is the current Design Like class. If you make pieces that come out of these classes, we're going to be in Sauter Village next year with this stuff. So be thinking about that because it's a great feather in your cap to be taking the Design Like classes, producing pieces that are based on the classes, doing your own designs, and then having them hang up in a special place like that. Think about it. It's a great feather in everybody's cap, and it's right there for you. Thumbs up. Thank you so much. Patreon supporters, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Think about supporting this channel. There's 3 shows every week of free content, and will always be free because I will never be comfortable with it being behind a money wall. We are all here to learn, and I know everybody is in different brackets. If you are supporting at a high level, a huge thank you. If you are supporting at a lower level, an equal thank you. I appreciate all of it. I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that stuff so you know next time I'm coming live. I hope that I see you on Sunday for the Design Like Paul Klee class. Be signed up for that. Make sure you're signed up for Designing Like the Fairy Tale Storybook Part 2. Totally different fairy tales coming up later this month. I'll be on vacation for over 2 weeks, end of May, early June. So if you want to do stuff with me, do it now while I'm around because then I will be in the crazy black hole swimming on my back across a pond for over 2 weeks, and I won't be available at that point. So make sure that we get together and do our stuff and you get going with your designs and you're all set up because that's coming up too. I will see you Monday or Sunday. I'll see you Monday for coffee time where we will continue talking about Hooked on Handwork, and we will go over the rest of the responses that we got from the people who submitted answers and entered the contest for the Celtic book, right? I want to look at those answers about how you got involved in rug hooking in the first place. We'll do all that Monday on coffee time at noon Eastern Standard Time. Happy weekend to everybody. Wish me luck. Wish me a very quick recovery so I can get to Wethersfield tomorrow, vacuum up all of that great information about all of that hand